franchises in the Cashflow 202 game. Now in the 101 game of Cashflow, to get out of the rat race, you just have to make your passive income equal to your expenses so you don't have to work. In the 202 game, you have to make your passive income double your expenses. This enables you to get out onto the fast track, which is the ring around the edge of the board. When you land on a green square, you can, if you wish, purchase the business. In this case, it's $120,000 and it gives you a cash flow of $5,000. If you pay the money, you put your token on. The franchise element happens when you land on it again. You can choose to franchise the business and you pay the same amount and put another token on alongside the first token. If you were to land on it for a third time, you could put a second franchise on and it still costs the same amount, and you put a third token on alongside the other two. Remember that you get 5,000 cash flow for each token. That's 5,000 for the original business and 5,000 for each of the two franchises. So $15,000 in this case whilst you hold that business. Now, what can happen is that when somebody else lands on your business, you can lose all that cash flow. Let's look at just the business on its own first. If you've just bought the business and purple comes along and lands on the square, you have to sell it to them if purple wants. So in this case, they would pay the down payment of $120,000 plus a further $120,000 for the business. So they pay you $240,000. Now, to indicate that purple had bought this business off green, they would place their token on top of green. Green would lose their 5,000 cash flow and purple would gain it. Similarly, if another player, black, lands on the square and they wish to purchase the business off purple, they would pay $120,000 again to purple and $120,000 for the business. So they would then put their token on top of purple. So this carries on with a stacked token indicating the transfer of the business from one player to another. Going back to the original situation of just green having the business and now one franchise, the same sort of thing happens. Basically, purple comes along and wishes to buy the business and the franchise. They have to buy them together, they can't split them up. So purple then pays the 120 down and the 120 for the business and the 120,000 down and the 120,000 for the first franchise, and then places their two tokens on top of green's two tokens. And similarly, if black came along, landed on the square and wanted to purchase the business and the franchise off purple, they would have to pay 120,000 down and two lots of 120,000 for the business, 120,000 down and two lots of 120,000 for the franchise. So they would pay six lots of 120,000 or 720,000, and then they would put their token on top of purple. So it gets more and more expensive as more and more players take over the businesses. Black can still land on this square and purchase a second franchise, and they just pay 120,000 down. The complication comes when somebody else, purple again, wishes to buy the whole business and two franchises. They have to pay 120,000 per token plus 120,000 for each business and each franchise. So in this case it would be 3 plus 1, 3 plus 1, which is 8, and 1 plus 1, which is 10. So they would have to pay 10 times 120,000 or 1,200,000. So you can see that the cost goes up as the number of players and the number of franchises increases. So there it is, franchises in the Cashflow 202 game.